Dimp Digital presents Idle Game Chat.
Cool.
Hello, Apps here from Dimp Digital. Welcome to Idle Game Chat. This is the weekly video games podcast where we give our impressions of the games that you can play today and react to the latest news from the wonderful world of video games. We're here every Monday on your favourite podcast app and YouTube, absolutely free. This week, I'm joined once again by the three-time Dimp Digital Gaming Quiz champion. It's Tom Adkins, not Adcock. How's it going?
I'm fed up.
He's fed up again.
Fed up again. This fucking seasonal period where everyone's like, come out for a drink. You
Yep.
go, no. And then you go, all right.
Yeah, and then you lose at least the next day.
Yeah, that's
It's
it.
a two-day commitment, really, these
Yeah,
days.
it is. So I'm fed up. I don't want to go out next week. I'm sick of it.
No, well,
Being it.
I've got something planned pretty much every weekend now until Christmas, and then even stuff after. It's like, it's not ideal.
Get back in a lockdown.
Well, it might happen at this rate. Boris might save us in the end.
Yeah,
So
that's
you're
true.
going to have to play some games, and that's it, and be done with it.
That's it.
New variants
another
floating
lockdown.
around. Just stay at home and don't see your family, and I'll be like, fine by me. Same as every other Christmas if I had my way. But
Excellent.
yeah, it's that busy time of the period. We've got a few episodes left before we take a break, so I believe it is. We've got another 1, 2, 3, and then we'll have 2 weeks off. So an extended break, and 2 of those episodes will be, well, should be. There should be one for the quiz, which will be happening, and then the results show for the Fantasy Gaming League, which is going down to the wire. You're involved in that quite heavily. I mean, the team game
Unbelievable.
is almost over, and Biff looks like he's going to lose to a rudderless coalition. That looks like that's going to happen unless Ori and the collection finally get some reviews, but he's dropped a clanger there. But you're basically dueling it out now with Logan head to head. He's posted his score. You're 2 or 3 points off with Halo Infinite. Only 8 reviews out there for Halo, so it could go up or down when we get the campaign launching in a couple of weeks. So.
Has a multiplayer game ever done this before, where all these reviews so far are just like multiplayer reviews, aren't they?
Yeah,
There's nothing to do with the campaign.
Technically still a beta, so should you be chucking scores on it? I don't know.
So I'm hoping it, but the trouble is that I still have concerns on this, in the state of this campaign. But, you know, the multiplayer is brilliant, so as long as it's a little bit like that, there's high hopes. But yeah, I've never seen this before on a review. Like normally, some of them do separate sort of reviews, and they have like the multiplayer section and then the campaign. But I assume this is all just going to meld into one. And
looks that way.
that's
Yeah, I mean,
all
they
we
have
go.
a lot of them have done review in progress. So they've basically reviewed the multiplayer component, and then I guess they'll do the campaign and then slap a score on it. But there's enough out there for it to register a score on OpenCritic, so it's been live and it's been trending in the right way. 89 as we record this. I think you need it on a 91 to take it off Logan if nothing else changes. But there's like 4 or 5 games that keep moving every other day. So, you know, it is quite fluid. It only take a couple of points either way, and Logan might lose the title again on an absolute gut wrencher.
It'll be justice for me actually after last year, because
Yes.
I lost out to the Logan rule
Yeah.
for Cyberpunk. That came out to like 91, and then like 5 days later it went down to about 70.
Those dirty bastards released the PC code, didn't they, before release?
Yeah.
So all those reviews went up, and then slowly the console reviews came in sort of like a week later as people got to it and played through it, and it went down by about 20 points. I think you only lost by about 10 or something, so it was It was a stinker, so it would be justice. But then Logan's been screwed out a few times.
Yeah, he has, to be fair. He does always do quite well with this, to be fair. I know he was saying in his podcast last week that he doesn't get the credit he deserves.
Well,
But
that's what Biff always said, and he shut everyone up, and then he's back to square one now, losing to nobody, it seems.
You know, it cost me my 100% record. Livid.
You're only as good as your last event.
Yeah.
That's what I say. Before we crack on into the main part of the show, I'm going to do a bit of cross-pollination, as they call it. So, as some people would have seen in our socials, I was fortunate enough to go on to the Social Monkey podcast, which is live on YouTube, and got to speak to Bridger, the host of that. We chat a bit of gaming, a bit of content creation, and a ton of other subjects as well. It goes on for nearly 2 hours. We was both like, cool, look at the time when we looked at the end of that. But if you head over to YouTube and search for the Social Monkey, have a watch or a listen, whatever you prefer. And he's had some far more interesting guests than me on there, like porn stars, musicians, people who have done proper stuff rather than sitting in front of a telly playing with computer games for a living. So that's not even for a living either. That's the real sad thing of it. Not even getting paid to this. Technically are getting paid, but not a lot. Not sustainable, unlike Phil's Game Pass, as he said. So I want that sustainability money. But yeah, head over to that, The Social Monkey. You can find it on YouTube. He's got a Facebook page if you want to do that. He's doing a fantasy football league through Football Manager. So he's got 12 or so people that come in. They all pick their teams. They do a draft. And then they play the games out for a number of weeks. So that's quite interesting to follow on the YouTube as well. Again, that's The Social Monkey. And then this week, you'll be getting a bonus episode of Idle Game Chat. Dubbed it Bonus Stage. I don't know if I like that name, but I'm thinking if anyone's got any better names for spoiler casts and stuff that doesn't fit in the main show, which is basically just spoiler casts. That's the only thing we try not to do on the show week to week is spoil games. We did one with The Last of Us Part 2, so it's been over a year since we've done one, but I got to speak to Mitch Sikorsky from Pixel Points to talk about Kena in depth. So that'll be going live in the week, probably Wednesday, I think I've earmarked for that. So there's a few bits and pieces, moving parts. We don't usually tend to get involved with things like that, but it's been one of those months. It's been good. But that'll do that. We'll crack on. Head on to the gaming jar. Golden Joysticks Awards.
Oh.
Now, the only reason I bring this up, really, is because last week we was talking about the Game Awards, and we talked about the crying because Forza Horizon 5 wasn't nominated. Lots of fans angry, saying, why ain't it nominated? And Logan made a good case for the fact that it's probably just genre snobbery, that racing games just don't be getting on that list.
Yeah.
And then a week later, we got the Golden Joystick Awards, which is it's not fan only, but it's voting by the fans. So I'm sure reviewers or industry people can vote on it as well. There's nothing to stop you. But this is like supposed to be a fan voted on Game of the Year award. And this is what happens when you let the general public do things, all right? Any guesses for what the Game of the Year was? So they do each platform. So Nintendo gets a Game of the Year, Xbox Play, which is actually quite a novel way of doing it, PC as well. But they do an ultimate Game of the Year. Without looking, because I can see you tapping away.
Oh, I've already seen this.
Oh, you've seen it?
The old, like the game ever.
So there's two. You've got Ultimate Game of the Year and then Ultimate Game of All Time. We'll get to both of them.
I haven't seen Game of the Year. I've seen Game of All Time.
All right, so try and guess Game of the Year from the general public.
The general public. I'm going to go... I always go with like a bit of a niche one. So I'm going to say, It Takes Two?
That was at least nominated.
Oh, was it?
Incorrect.
Incorrect.
I'll give you one more shot at it.
Resi?
Resi.
Was it?
Yeah.
Wow.
Resident Evil Village, which I think we enjoyed, but
yeah,
I don't think I would ever even consider it to win
Game
of the Year. I know it's been a light year, but...
Yeah.
Come on.
Not Metroid. God.
Not Metroid, no. I was quite surprised, but... The general public giving us Resident Evil Village for the ultimate Game of the Year. It also won PlayStation Game of the Year.
Did it?
Nintendo's was Metroid Dread, and then Xbox Game of the Year was Psychonauts 2. So
really cool. Even Ratchet just binned by the PlayStation.
Yeah, Returnal bins. They've just gone for a third-party tutor. So that'll roll the blue bloods up, green bloods and red bloods laughing at there too. Well, Psychonauts 2 technically not an exclusive, but at least they bloody made it. And then we got onto the ultimate game of the year. So I think it was celebrating, like the big thing about this one was celebrating 50 years of gaming. I can't remember exactly how they got that timeline. They did explain at the start, but I've forgotten. So someone please correct me.
But this isn't a category they do every time.
I don't think the ultimate game of the year is. No.
Right. I was going to say, I don't think I've ever seen one of these.
I believe this is just a one-off for this 50-year anniversary. Loads of games potentially could be done, in 50 years of gaming. And we get treated to Dark Souls.
Unbelievable. I suppose it is. Well, I suppose
it's not even technically competent. It runs it chugs like shit. Bloody hell!
I remember Clarky had it on PC, and he said that there was like this weird bug that was just like it weren't part of his game. It was just the game in general, and it like tied the FPS to the animation or something.
Yeah.
So like if it chugged, he couldn't swing his sword or something. It was really weird.
So strange. There's sometimes odd things like that on PC. Like I remember there was what was I watching? I was watching like a walkthrough of Resident Evil 2 remake after I played it, and he was the guy that I was watching was playing it on PC. And they use the knife quite a lot in that because I think they're doing no damage runs and it saves ammo on like the hardest difficulty, which you don't have a lot. So they utilise the knife a load, and the damage of the knife is tied to the FPS. So on consoles, I think it runs at 60, so it would be like a standard set of damage being added. But if you run it at 120 or higher on your machine on your PC, the knife would do more damage.
That's unbelievable.
What do you make of that then? Ultimate game of the year, ultimate game of all time, I should say. Dark Souls.
Time.
Yeah.
I mean, it is like obviously it started. It didn't even start a genre, did it? Really, Demon Souls.
Demon Souls was there before that.
I know it's a franchise, but even when you see these sort of games lists, the biggest ones of all time, the best influential, Dark Souls don't typically seem to be in that conversation. It's always fucking Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time, Final Fantasy VII, Metal Gear, fucking, I don't know, GTA or something. But, yeah, Dark Souls, that's...
I thought Breath of the Wild was going to sting it, and I was like, oh, God,
imagine
that's
that.
another conversation altogether.
But, yeah, no, it's an odd one. And I know it is like a gamer's game, I suppose.
Well,
is it?
Is it?
I mean, none of... Pac-Man... Probably the only
well,
one.
All the classics just shunned Tetris,
yeah.
Just not a look in Ocarina of Time, like you said. Super Mario 3D.
So it's not all fan voted then. There are some critiques.
No, it's open for anyone.
It's open for anyone.
So the way I understand it, and again could be wrong, but this is not weighted towards any critics or anything. It's simply you can log on to Games Radar and sign up to vote, and you vote. So you could be from anywhere. You could sign up 4 times if you wanted. So there's no real...
Right.
One of the other issues that we raised last week is these campaigns to get Rage Against the Machine to be Christmas #1. It happened.
Right, yeah.
It got manipulated. But yeah, you can essentially, if you can be bothered, sign up to register to vote, and that's it. There's no gatekeeping at all. So this is just the numbers game at the end of the day. Considering that it's a niche game... I was very, the amount of people that have played one Mario Kart game probably, have played more than the whole franchise put together of what From Software have done. It's well,
it is peculiar. Very.
This is what happens when you let the fans do it.
Yeah, I mean the general public voted Boris and Trump, so they can't be trusted.
They've already had their cards taken or are being trusted.
Yeah. Was there like runners up? Was it like was it like selected five, or was that just the most voted game?
Yeah, so I remember I looked on the site when they were doing it, and the most of the award categories were closed, but Ultimate Game of the Year wasn't. And there's a list of about 20 games, maybe 24 that you could choose from. So it was an exhaustive list. I think the list you could choose from had the big hitters. But not for a second did I expect to see Dark Souls popping out as that. But
I remember buying games and it having Joystick Award stickers on it. So it's...
We've been going a long, long time. I think they've been going like 30 years or something silly like that. Or something like that. So they've definitely always been around for a long time. Whether or not people put much credence in it. Maybe after this they won't. They'll be like, bloody hell. But no.
Fresh off of Elden Ring.
1983 was the first Golden Joysticks.
Oh, blimey.
I'm not even going to ask you what might have won Game of the Year. Something called Jetpack.
Never heard of it.
Okay, we'll run through until we find something. 1983 Jetpack, no. 1984 Night Law, no. 1985 Way of Exploding Fist, no. 1986, I feel like I have heard of this one, but not familiar. Gauntlet.
Yeah, I think I've heard that.
Here we go. 1987 Outrun.
There we go. That's the year I was born.
It beat Last Ninja and Renegade.
Did it?
Yes. And then
was that Sega Mega Drive?
Well, I don't know if it technically started as an arcade game.
Oh, right. Yeah, I suppose they're picking that
I believe. Back then, yeah. 88, they bollocksed it up. They've done Computer Game of the Year, Console Game of the Year, so they've tried to do all that. Nothing to note there. 89, we've got Game of the Year, The Untouchables. 1990, they've done that silly thing again, where they've messed around with all the different, split it out. And then Sonic won it in 1991.
Oh, the real leap.
92 was Street Fighter 2. Super Mario All-Stars in 94. Must have skipped 93.
No chance. Ain't doing it every year anymore.
96/97, Super Mario 64. And then
choice.
GTA.
Yeah, that's the one.
And then they went to sleep again for a little while. 2002 it came back. GTA 3.
Cool.
So quite fitting when you look at that definitive trilogy coming out and just being absolutely crapped on. Have you tried that?
I tried San Andreas. I played an hour. And it just feels like an old game still. It looks a bit better. And to be honest, it ran all right for me. I didn't find...
You used to play it on Xbox, was you?
Yeah, I downloaded it off the Game Pass. And the driving felt a bit better. It's quite handy having the weapon wheel and stuff like that. Yeah. But the sort of core elements of the game are still, 10, 20-year-old games, whatever they are. So... I just it was more like a beta test for me. So I just tested it. I was like, well, I've already got fucking 5 games on the go. I ain't getting stuck into this. I do want to go back to it because they do sound like they're going to try and at least salvage it a bit. I was thinking of introducing a Cyberpunk 2077 award for our Game of the Year. And that's the front runner for this year. Yeah. Yeah, that has taken that. It's currently sitting on about 57, I think. It's bad, isn't it? Did not expect that of
It's things like, because they've essentially, it looks like what they've done is they've run this AI to upscale certain bits and do the textures. Like, where the AI can't figure things out properly, it's like misspelt posters and stuff. Like it's got words back to front where it's thinking it's doing the right thing. There was something I've seen, like a few highlight reels of like errors and bugs and whatnot. Like, there's one where they were driving on GTA 3 and then he fell through the map and just fell on just went out the bottom through the road, and I was like, that happened back in 2001. That definitely happened to me. Some of this shit's probably been in the game for fucking years.
Is it a port of the mobile version?
Apparently so. So that's the base of it. So I think they are in a bit of a pickle with that because there was problems to be had. And Take-Two, fucking hell, pull your thumbs out. And Rockstar, you've now, whether you developed it fully or not, which I don't think it sounds like they did, they had a lot of support from a smaller studio, I think like Grove Street or something. Either way, everyone looks at Rockstar and goes, they're the top dogs. They'll see that stamped on it and go, right. It's like another Fallout 76 where, the Bethesda Softworks did it. Turns out that was a different team internally, like the Austin team were doing a lot of that. But once you put the badge on it, it's got to be up to your top quality. You can't
polish. When you think fucking Red Dead was the last one that come out, absolute polish central.
Yeah.
And then they go, right, that loads you till GTA 6 gets announced. No, it fucking won't.
Probably will push back. I was hoping they would get remasters of Red Dead Redemption. One, because it would be nice to have that. I know you can play it on back compat via the Xbox, but if you're on PlayStation, you can't play it. And I don't think it runs at 60. I don't think they've FPS boost that.
No,
it runs. They claim it runs at 4K, but the textures aren't made for that, so they don't look as good as they could. And it's not on PC at all.
Oh.
So, PC fans out there, it'd be good for them to play that. And then GTA 4 as well. I'd love to see that redone not redone, just like a coat of paint slapped on it, boost the frame rate. I'll go back through that again. Well, I keep saying things like this.
Yeah.
Someone start writing down the amount of times I say I'll go back through that, and I'll never do.
Nah,
it took me a year and a half basically to get to Mafia, which we'll might talk about later on. I said I was getting that day one last year. That didn't happen. So don't listen to my lies. I fib you lot, but yeah, that was a stinker, really. No good. There's a little headline here. I don't usually venture to Kotaku, but I thought the headline just sort of summed up the message quite well. Quote, after all the hype, Spider-Man doesn't even have story missions in Marvel's Avengers. End quote. Now, poor old Adkins has been on the Avengers train since it come out. He's been playing every bit of DLC and drop, because they've been free, but still he's had to invest his time into this. And Jim Ryan, poor old Jimbo's, sent a bung over to Square Enix saying, we'll get Spider-Man, we'll have him for good. Beautiful tactile move. That's going to be a big hit for both of us. You'll earn some money off this bung. I'm going to get a load of PlayStation players. I mean, what is it? It is 18 months as good as since it came out last year. We're finally going to get it. And then the news drops, I think is it revealed in an IGM hands-on preview, that instead of having like a solo story arc, which to my understanding a lot of the others have had,
all of them.
They're just doing, audio logs and some illustrated cutscenes that unlock through character-specific challenges. I mean, what are we doing here?
Well, this is the reason why I bought it on PlayStation.
Of course.
Would I have gone? Maybe I would have gone Xbox. I don't know, but that was the sole reason for this. I was like, right, I can't be missing out on Spider-Man. I thought they might integrate the PS4 Spider-Man into it. They seemingly haven't.
Insomniac probably went, you ain't touching our stuff.
Yeah, they knew
we don't want to be associated with this. We know what we're doing on this side of the fence. We'll carry on.
Yeah.
You guys do your Spider-Man.
That's it. So, but yeah, this is just what the fuck. Yeah, audio logs. What the fuck? Like, and they've even like the fucking when they done the two Hawkeye and Hawk Girl.
Yeah.
They both had their own story. They like connected, 3 hours ish. Perfect. That's fine. I'm happy with that. The game's in a state of playability now. That was one of the main problems from when it first came out. Especially now it's on that's PS5. It runs a lot better and smoother. The game still is boring as shit, and
you've committed to all this deal. You might as well finish it off now.
Exactly. So, but yeah, now what am I going to do? I'm just going to go like the character. He looks quite cool. And that, but I mean, what am I doing? I'm just going back through what I've already played and looking for these fucking audio logs. As Lappers rightly says, sweet audio logs never been uttered by any game.
No,
is it that on the now?
Yeah, it's. I mean, I really
poor.
Thought we were past the sort of nonsense of this when they introduced the boosted XP to it. And then 3 weeks later took it out because people went, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "All right." Yeah. We've had a bit of money off you, but we'll pull the plug on that. And then, I mean,
after
go on.
I was saying after playing a bit of that Guardians game, what that game could have been, Avengers, if it was much like this and it didn't have all this shit. And they had this from the beginning. It's just such a pain. But they should just pull the plug on it now. That's it. Done.
Well, I was going to ask you that. I mean, this felt like... I haven't seen the roadmap, but this seemed like this was the roadmaps that I had previously seen perhaps in the summer. I don't remember there being anything specifically called out after the Spider-Man bit.
No.
It's happening at the end of the year. So... I mean, do they just at some point next year just say we're not going to do any more content updates because this is a fair bit of effort? I mean, this Spider-Man ain't. This is absolute.
No,
let's just fulfill the minimum obligation that we've got to Jimbo. Stick a cock up him and then walk off, and that's what they're going to do. But the other ones, like the Black Panther ones and the Hawkeye ones, seem like they put some level of effort into them. I mean, is there any point anymore? They're just going to walk away from this and go, "That was a failed experiment."
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, Womble's saying it is a dead end, and I think he's right. Like that, certainly with the Black Panther one, that was the update that you wanted. It was like a new UI update. They sort of added quality of life enhancements, a decent chunk of story with new characters. Like I say, I think they added like raids now, which people have been calling for, and what that end game's all about, really. But yeah, then I feel like this has been more hyped than the Black Panther. Like the fact that we're getting this, and this is an absolute kick to the bollocks. The worst thing about this is that I paid full price for this on day one, and now they're fucking chucking it out for free, left, right, and centre. You can get it on anything.
I know.
I'll be on that.
It's been on PSNow already. They've had a bung off. They've just done whatever they can to get little bungs here and there after taking the original bung.
Bang, bang, bang. They should just do after this is out, then I think they should do a bit of a anthem and just go, look, obviously this didn't go to the extent we wanted. Hands washed, we'll move on.
We'll walk away from it.
But I thought a similar sort of thing would happen with our Outriders, but they've seemingly gone, no, still going. You're going to sniff at that?
I'm just having a look. Yeah, so November 30th is the latest roadmap I can see, which includes the Spider-Man piece. And there's some reworked systems in there, level cap increase, gear upgrades, resources. But there's nothing after that. So, tomorrow, if people are listening to this as it goes up on the archive, that could be the last major update we get to Marvel's Avengers. And what has been got to go down as one of the biggest missed opportunities of all time. Because
for this, like this, when they were like announcing this project, it was almost felt like a bit of a Destiny-esque with, the 10-year... I didn't quote that sort of number, I'm just making that up. But, the way they were saying that, we're going to be adding these characters in and have their own stories. And I remember saying at the beginning, like, the amount of shit that they can pull from this universe and franchise, the stuff they could do, it was, like, endless. It could have been the greatest game ever, but a real tutter. But yeah, I just think these games are done. I haven't even played that Outriders, but nothing really grabs the bollards in it.
No, it was decent.
Yeah.
Me and Logan played through it together. If it wasn't on,
have you sniffed at that new DLC for it?
No. I've had my fill of that game. It was long enough just playing through it normally, and haven't gone back to it since we finished it. I think we had a little dabble in the end game and was kind of like, we're sort of done with this now. It's a bit of a strange game, but it was what it was. In hindsight, would my hours have been better invested in something else? Probably, and that's the sort of problem I always have with Game Pass. Sometimes I get things, I think, oh, value, thank you. And I get a quarter of the way in, and I'm like, oh, I've got to finish this now because that.
But that is a good thing. That it was on Game Pass.
But the thing is, Adkins, I never would have bought it.
No, that's
I would have.
True,
I'd have saved. The money would have been the same because I'd have paid Phil again. But I'd have saved time. So on that deathbed of mine, they'll be going, any regrets, and I'll go Outriders.
Yeah, all right.
And I'll blame Phil for it.
Fucking hell.
What a privileged fucking take to have. Oh,
yeah.
You gave it to me on part of my subscription. I'm still not happy.
You're entitled, motherfucker.
I don't know what I want sometimes. I really don't.
Yeah.
But it's that's a disaster for Marvel's Avengers and fans that were looking forward to that. Probably a bit of karma because I know a lot of people were not happy that they did this anyway, especially Xbox and PC players.
I was going to say, the boys in green are going to be pissing their
pants. The green bloods
they're
fucking laughing at the blue bloods, and it's another black eye for them this year.
Oh.
We'll move on. Let's move on. So I've played through and finished Mafia Definitive Edition.
Oh, okay. Where's that snuck in?
Well, it went on to PlayStation Now. So I started playing Horizon, which I spoke about last week, and went through all that, and that was a fantastic go through. About 5 days into starting that, Mafia Definitive Edition, which I've had my eye on several storefronts in terms of like a sale, or I was hoping it would go to Epic at one point. I felt like that might end up on, as a freebie from them, or if it was like 15 quid on one of the consoles, I would have got it. And then it popped through PlayStation Now and said here till February, and I was like, oh, that's plenty of time. So got through Horizon, had a day off, put my feet up, and then I was like, right, let's get on this Mafia Definitive Edition. Because I was, in fact, a huge fan of the original. So I think I played it. It must have been. So the timeline, I believe, in my head is 2002. It comes out on PC, and then it arrives on PS2 and Xbox in around 2004. Yep. And I played it after that because I remember reading reviews about it, and they basically said don't get it on the consoles. Like there's the loading times in mission are long, there's bugs, there's issues, etc., etc. And at the time, I didn't have any kind of good PC, but fortunately enough, I had a PC that was capable of playing this. And I remember I was on a forum at the time, and people were bigging it up, and I was like, oh, I'll get this Mafia game then. And so I played through it, and for a while, it was like my favourite game. Like for a good few years, I fucking adored this game. Linear, set in an open world, which was kind of like a bit different because it's just after GTA 3 and then Vice City and San Andreas had already been out, which are open world games. This was slightly different because the campaign and the story structure is that you go to through these linear missions and don't really go off in the sandbox, but the linear missions can spill out into the open world in car chasing or shooting or whatever, and that creates a nice flow. I like the fact that there's no bloat. Like, you ain't got to be clearing down these areas and killing all these people. There is collectibles and stuff in it, but nothing major. But essentially, you go from point A to point Z, B, wherever it is in the city, and you're laughing. You go for a nice little mission. Maybe it'll spill out into the streets, and that's where you get your little sandbox moments. And it just made things a bit interesting. I really loved it. Again, it was one of these games that had that story element, had that cinematic story element, which I know some people despise, but I've always enjoyed in my games. Like a good blend of just gameplay-driven games, but also you tell me a good story, I'm going to enjoy it. And who's not a fan of these Mafia films? Who didn't grow up on Goodfellas and the likes? I mean, you're going to say I didn't.
No,
they are a bit long.
They are. Fuck it. I think it took me 3 nights to watch one of the Godfather films.
Yeah, they are long.
I hate these fucking Hangar 13 bastards because, as you know, Rodney has a system of games, and then if there's a franchise out, I can't be playing number 3. Start with 3. I've got to go back to the numero 1 and work my way up. This is The Witcher. That got a pass. So, much like yourself, is when I must have been back in about 2013 when I bought my PC. I was like, I never played any of the Mafia games on console. I was like, I really want to get into this thing. Right, let's go. Let's get number 1. Right, why can't I buy this game?
Yeah,
and it was when it was taken off because of the fucking licenses of the songs. Yep. I was like, fuck's sake. So Rodney had to fucking compromise, and I had to start with 2.
I'll tell you what, you done yourself a favour. You dodged a bit of a bullet, and this is right. And bear in mind, I just said that this was one of my favourite games ever. Yeah. It was old. It was made in 2002, so there's no cover based mechanics back then. You're just crouching behind things manually. You're sort of leading around walls. It's horribly hard at times. Like the checkpoint's not generous. If you fire, say you got a chamber and you got a revolver, it's got 6 bullets. You fire 3, and you think, right, I'll just get back here and reload. You reload, you lose those 3 bullets. It's not like video games like now where you keep the 3 bullets and they just go back in. Like this was like, no, you've just thrown them away. So you'd have to like manage your
added realism.
No regenerating health whatsoever. So that wasn't even a fault back then. That could be a thing. So it's pick up the placements and the health cabinets that are scattered around the levels, and then to really top it off, if you go through a red light, the police get up your arse. They go, "Wait, we've got traffic laws to abide by in this city." Now, what they do is if you speed, if you go for a red light or crash into another car or them, they won't arrest you and end the mission. They will instead ask you to stop the car and you get out and pay a ticket. They go, right, as a fine. You can just speed off. Yeah. So you can just go, bugger you come after me. And then they change, like the icon changes to an arrest symbol, which means they'll try and arrest you. You start shooting at them, they'll come kill you. Okay, now you can shake them off, you can get rid of them like, all games, but it had these weird quirks because it was back in 2002. No one
have the petrol.
There's petrol as well, yeah. So you can run out of petrol in the cars, which that was that happens in the original as well. You can fill it up, and not so much of a problem in the because it's quite a linear game. They normally give you enough petrol, but in the free ride mode, that was sometimes an issue. But yeah, there was all these weird things. But I loved it at the time because it felt like a bit of a simulation, and I was into my mafioso films and whatnot. And in terms of its narrative at the time, felt like it hit some really good beats and was well voice acted and was quite cinematic. Looked pretty good for the time as well. You go back and look at it now, you go, "What are you talking about, Appleyard?" And I go, "Well, it was 2002, mate."
Rodney is still. Exactly. Rodney is still lurking because he has to get that game done. It's currently sitting on Steam on sale for £2.63.
So here's the question for Rodders.
Do I go back and play the OG bad boy or stick with the definitive?
We'll have a chat and you can make your decision at the end. See if I can convince you either way. But that's kind of like my history with the Mafia game. I've played 2, I've played 3. I really liked 2 as well when that came out. 3, I had problems with because one of the things that annoys me is that the series was criticised consistently for you've got an open world there, but you don't do anything in it. You just do the missions. It's just backdrop. And I was like, yeah, that's fine. We've got enough open world. We've got enough open world games now, I'll tell you that much. But back then, perhaps there wasn't as many. And then with 3, they go, right, you keep saying you want open world. Here you go. Have this bloat. Have 30 hours of bloat cycled on top where you've got to break up rackets and you've got to take over sections of maps. And look, it wasn't the best game to play. It had some issues with controls. And then there was that slapped on top. And I was like, this isn't the Mafia series. This is now just, any open world game that's set in a city. Yeah. So be careful what you wish for, is what I'm saying. All these noisy bastards out there trying to ruin my Mafia games. Fortunately, with the definitive edition, they just kept to the structure pretty much and didn't fuck about. They've enhanced a lot of stuff and made it a good package to have, but they haven't gone down the open world route because they didn't do a good job at it. If you can do open world good, fine, but Hangar 13, you struggled. So the other aspect of this, Adkins, and this is something we've been waffling on about since these new consoles, is this 30 frames per second slop.
Oh, yeah. I remember you saying this is going to be your tester.
Yes. Now, Mafia Definitive Edition, as it stands on the consoles, has no option to unlock the frame rate because it was made for last gen consoles. This is playing through back compat, so it's a PS4 version. There's no unlocked frame rate, so it's 30 FPS or on your bike. Ooh. And I'll be honest, it wasn't as bad.
The first one.
No, it wasn't. The first one I've played probably since the PS5-ish. Probably a year at least since I've played a game that hasn't been or had the option to be 60, and it wasn't actually that bad in the end. I was pleasantly surprised that it was doable. The time you notice it is when you swing the camera around, because that's like going through fucking mud. And I had some difficulty with the control, with the aiming and the combat, which I'll get to. And I'm wondering whether having 30 FPS sort of makes that a little bit more sluggish, not as snappy when you're trying to free aim on targets that are moving and stuff. So it definitely has its drawbacks, but it wasn't as bad as I was anticipating. And to be honest, after 40 minutes, I was used to it. If you had it side by side next to me, I'd have been noticing all day long. But in the absence of that, it wasn't a problem. So actually, 30 FPS slop, whilst it's not ideal, if it's the only way to play it on the said hardware you've got, it can be done. But
I was around Yellow Boots the other week and he stuck Red Dead 2 back on OG Xbox, and I was like, cool. I remember he was going through Assassin's Creed Unity, and that, because it's fast combat, I could really tell. I was like, oh, this feels like mud, like you say. But with Red Dead, I think because it was so fluid and nice, and it's not really fast-paced action, is it?
No.
So, yeah, and I was like, cool. And much like yourself, like, 20, 25 minutes into the game, I'm like, I'm all right now. I'm happy to go through with this. So, yeah, I mean, we are spoilt now. Like you say, that is definitely one of the big perks. You said on Mr. Danny Bridges' podcast, that is definitely one of the perks now that this new generation of gaming, it's all 60, which is fucking lovely.
For now.
but now we've gone back.
We'll see.
Back
We'll see how they keep that up. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've got a feeling
I'm
someone like
surprised
Naughty Dog will come along and go, right, here's The Last of Us Part 3. It looks like real life, but it runs at 30, and people will be like, wow, why are we going back to this? But hopefully not, because I think that it feels like there's an appetite there for people that want 60. So, Definitive Edition, played it on PSNow. It's a PS4 back compat game. We've established that. The good. What's the good? Well, the narrative is really kind of brought to life because the upgrade in visuals, for one, just looks better. All the lighting, the stuff you'd expect for a game that was.
This is a remake,
full blown remake. So it's not based on any old code. It's simply the ideas pumped into a brand new engine and built from scratch again. It's completely and utterly Mafia still, but with modern tweaks, which I'll probably cover a few off. But visuals, a huge upgrade. It sounds weird comparing it to a game that came out in 2002, but that's kind of like my reference point. But just things like the facial animations and the voice acting, that's also, I think, heavily improved. They've tweaked some of the characters in terms of sometimes their accents or their backgrounds and things like that. They've spent a bit more time fleshing the side characters out. And because it's such a cinematic game, because it is, it's not really a gameplay first game, it's more of a cinematic experience. These enhancements are felt quite heavily. That's the first thing I was kind of picked up on a few hours in. I was like, they've completely expanded upon certain things, which is good. You play as a chap named Tommy Angelo. Is it Angelo? I think so. But he gets involved with the mob and whatnot, and he's got his two sort of friends within the family, which are Paulie and Sam. They do a great job of building that relationship out between those three. Much richer character development. I had a quick look at the OG earlier on today, and they barely bother with it. Like they just,
really?
It's just they. And in my head, they were all like these really good friends. But I was watching it back, and I was like, they're barely interacting. Like a lot of even like the setup for some of the jobs you do, which you do on your own. They are in the original. They're not even in the room with you and the boss. It's just you and the Don. In remake, they're kind of there, like going, "Yeah, Tommy," just chuckling in there, having a bit of like chat back and forth. So they do a much better job of tying the narrative together. They lean out a lot of the guff and smoothed over some of the older edges. Like, there's lots of going from A to B in the original, where you're just on your own, silent, and even if Paulie or Sam are in the car with you, they don't say anything.
Oh, really?
In Definitive Edition, it's much like you'd expect. I think GTA kind of started all this, where en route, they're chatting away, talking about things you've done in the past, bits and pieces like that. So, again, that's a nice enhancement. They remove some of the busy work from inside some of the missions, like having to collect certain things and go back. Then they ask you to go and do something else. That's kind of all smoothed out and much more leaned out. So you don't have a lot of busy work to do whilst you're in the missions, in these like little linear spaces. Things like waypoints have been added whilst you're on the mission. So no longer are you left to guess what room a target might be in. It will say they're in room 201 and here's 201. So that's pretty handy. GPS for driving around. Like, there was no GPS back in the day. You'd forever have to bring up the map to check I was going in the right direction towards my objective. So that's nice and handy. One of the consequences of the leaning out process is there's a couple of instances where they kind of cut some of the build up to missions. Oh, right. And they are busy work. Like, there's not a lot you do. You just kind of scoping out a place or setting up a particular area, and that's just not in it. Kind of goes from, we're planning to do this, to we're going to do it the next mission. I was like, we don't doing the setup business then. That's fine. Yeah. So that was a little bit disappointing. Has some good options as well, actually. So if you like the kind of old school mythology of it, they've got a classic mode, which does the bullet thing. So if you reload your gun before empty the chamber, you lose the bullets. The enemies are harder. They have the police response where they stop you for speeding. That's in the classic mode. and you can turn that on or off. So if you don't want to play classic mode and you still want that element, you can turn it off. So they've got quite a lot of options as to how you can change the game. You can skip non-essential driving segments. So if you're bored of driving around, going from A to B, you can have the option to skip that. You can turn that on or off. So nice options.
You do the app's dreamboat of auto drive it to your destination.
You can't. That was one of the big things of Horizon Zero Dawn when I played that. I was like, fuck me, I've got to lug it all the way over there on my own.
Could be a
so I used to these Ubisoft games playing themselves for me, and I'm sitting on my phone.
Did they re-record the audio?
It's all new voice actors, yeah.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
Is that,
so they've started, which is, I mean, having looked back at the original, it's a bit stiff. The performances are a bit stiff for back then even. So they've done the right thing by getting new actors in, and they're not different characters, but they do give off a different sense of presence whilst they're in this game. Yeah. Like I said, it's brought to life a lot more, so they kind of needed a bit more charisma, and a lot of the voice acting in this is excellent. So they've done a good job of sourcing those guys. And yeah, I mean, they've made Mafia playable in 2021. Like, answering your question, I really am struggling to see someone diving back into the original and enjoying it, unless you've played it back in the day and it's like nostalgia. I mean, even I wouldn't go and play it now, I don't think, because it's just so stiff. But now we've got the whole trilogy that's playable up to sort of a modernish standard with 1, 2, and 3. And your mileage will vary on whether you enjoy those games and whatnot. But I think this is I was really pleased to go through this again and play it. Because it felt like a bit of a lost game of mine, and this kind of, now that gap's been filled. Now it's not perfect, but my recommendation would be just to dive into this. And there's a couple of reasons. Well, there's another reason why, in that it does tie very loosely to Mafia 2, and the definitive edition ties it up a lot better. Because they weren't thinking about Mafia 2 in 2002. Now that Mafia 2's done, they've kind of seen where the connected pieces and fleshed that bit out a bit more. So that'll make a lot more sense. That's one reason why sort of playing, these modern ones is the way to go, and just sort of macking off the original. Yeah. But, and this won't change a lot of this from the original. They still have somehow fallen into some of the same traps as the original from 2002. The combat, stiff as fuck.
Oh, really?
Wooden old turt.
Is this? This is gunplay, or is this?
This is melee as well. I mean, the melee is not as bad, but it's very much like you just stand there, wait, press triangle when the prompt comes to counter, and then just hit them. And then you can do this finisher on them. And if you've got a knife, it's quite cool. It's like fucking brutal, actually. It gives them a good old stabbing. But with like a gun or a bat, like, it doesn't feel like it's hitting them. It feels really, really flimsy. So that's the melee's not great. Shooting is. I struggled with it, and I mentioned earlier because perhaps it was the frames per second that was costing me a little bit, but I don't remember having this problem with things like Uncharted, which doesn't have revolutionary shooting or gunplay, but felt competent. Now, I may have made an error because I left it on normal. I didn't change anything. I don't like to change anything in these games. Whatever the settings on, I go, right, leave it on that. There is an aim assist, which you can have off, low, or high. Now, by default, it's on low, and it ain't that good. So what I did is, after I finished the game, I went into free ride mode just to fuck about, put it on high just to see what it felt like, and it felt so much better. Like, oh, really? Because what happens on low is you'll pop out of cover, and it doesn't really aim at the person. It aims sort of near them, and because of the inaccurate kind of aiming, which I believe is part controller, maybe part frames per second, by the time I've got my gun aimed at someone, I've been shot 3 times. And there's no regenerating health still, so you're still picking up health on this game. Right. So if you get yourself in a pickle in like the opening part of a shootout, you can screw yourself up for the next phase. So my recommendation would be to turn it on to high, and people might go, "Oh, you make it too easy." And I was like, "Well, you are, but outside of that, it's just not very good." And to be honest, like, imagine you're in behind cover, you're going fuck,
yeah.
If you popped out of cover, would you just aim at the wall? You wouldn't. Your
true.
arm and eye would aim towards the person. So my recommendation is to put it on high.
Right.
just take that hit.
Did you try it off completely?
Yeah, it's just.
I was going just 10 times.
It's not too different from low. There is a little bit of help with low, but it's low still.
Yeah.
So
that's by default.
Yeah, by default. But I'd recommend putting that on high. I mentioned the melee being a bit crap as well. Driving is interesting. I mean, these are 1930s cars, so they handle like trash. And I had it on
power steering.
Well, you need some of that sometimes. I had it on the standard driving model, which again was on by default. There is a simulation option which I didn't try. I imagine that's worse, but maybe I'd have got on better with that. And there are stealth elements, so be prepared to deal with that. And it's very standard, like crouch, stay behind someone, knock them out. I had a real issue with one of the missions. I must have died about 8 times, and I was like, "What is going on here?" And I couldn't get
checkpoints.
They are okay. Sometimes you'll be like, but most of the time they're reasonably fair. But I had one bit where I was doing a stealth takedown, and the prompt come up, hit circle, we just punched him in the back of the head, and then he turned around and shot, and it ended the mission because you had to stay. Stay hidden. That happened 2 times, and after that I was like, well, I'll just have to leave him and try a different route. So it's definitely not a flawless execution. In fact, there's a lot of room to improve the gameplay of the game, which I know is terminal for some people. They'll be like, oh, but it is playable still. But if you've played Mafia 3, it's probably on par with that. Thinking back, it's not like it has its problems for sure. Other bits and bobs. It's got free ride mode, like I mentioned, so that's like sandbox mode.
Is there much to do in that sort of thing? Like,
not really
compared to something like GTA, where it's open end.
No, I mean you can grab some collectibles. You can. I don't know. There is like some side missions that you can only do in free ride mode, and it's like one of them. Like it said, go to this point on the map. Like, it didn't tell me exactly where to go. It's to go to the western point of Little Italy, and then there's a phone ring, and you pick it up, and it was like, right, drive this car from here to here in the time limit. Don't damage it, and it was just a nightmare. And I was like, this is not fun.
What's his name? Tommy. Can you customize Tommy, or is he?
He can't customize his hair, but you can put new outfits on him in free ride mode, but not in the story mode. He'll be wearing whatever he's designed for. But yeah, that's kind of there if people want it. There are collectibles like baseball cards and comics and bits and pieces like that. Yeah. But really random bug I had, and I had these earphones on, these Pulse 3D ones. I wear these, when I don't think I'm going to get robbed, I put these on, which isn't often. There's always little terrors roaring around these parts, trying to get into houses. But I had it on, and then suddenly, I don't know if you remember when you'd like pull out the back of a cable on your aerial of your telly, and it would go.
Oh yeah.
It fucking did that in my ear. Nearly deafened me, and I thought, oh Christ, it's the earphones going out the shitter. So I took them off. I was like, Jesus Christ, I've had my eardrum burst. Put it away. Switched it off. Come out the bloody telly. Past midnight, waking neighbours up, and I was like, bloody hell. So I just restarted the game and it got rid of it. But that was such a random bug.
Weird. That's not fun, isn't it?
But yeah, any questions or queries?
Just in the general presentation, because when the screens come out, the first screens, I was like, oh, look at this. It looked like crystal. The presentation of it sounds like, as it is a cinematic experience. Definitely, you'd say that was more focused on rather than gunplaying.
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't look the best now because we've had a year of this new hardware, so it's not.
It was quite late in the PlayStation 4 life, wasn't it? Was it like
it was almost. I think it was like October or September, October. It's 2020. It's only a year old, I think. I mean, I'll double check, but I'm pretty sure it's reasonably new, because I remember thinking this will be my swan song for the PS4.
Yeah,
2020.
2020, crikey. Surprised Biff never got involved. It seems like a Biff game.
Yeah, it is a bit of a Biff game, really. Because it's not long either. It's like 8 hours.
No. Oh, was it really? Cool.
You can skip through.
Was the original that short as well?
Yeah, about that. It's funny. I looked at Metacritic and the review. Like, none of the websites are up anymore from 2002, so you can't read the whole thing. But it has a synopsis there, and one of them actually quotes. It says, "With a runtime of about 8 hours, this is quite a long game for what it is. We're not used to single player campaigns running this long." And I was like, it did used to be like that generally. The single player stuff was quite short.
Now,
but nowadays it's a drop, not a drop in the ocean. But to be honest. You don't want 25 hours of this.
Nah, some of them games like that.
No.
That's enough, isn't it? It stays for its welcome and you're done.
But no, I'm glad it exists.
What about that music and sound design? And
they kind of have remixed some of the classic, original music that's part of it. I don't think they've licensed some of the original songs on the radio. There are other songs that play through the radios in the cars, though. So it still does a good job of, I guess, presenting that 1930s style, and the music goes into that well. I mentioned the voice acting, so that's all in place. Although they've taken their own liberties in terms of original soundtrack stuff, other than like the main theme, which I think is fair. But really, a really faithful remake of the game that doesn't bastardise it, doesn't make sweeping changes, even as much as what Resident Evil 2 did, really.
Well, that certainly fleshed out characters.
Yeah.
Like fucking like Ken that owned the bloody gun shop. Like, it was just one line in the original, and then like this had his own segment.
Yeah. They kind of do that here as well. They do expand on things, but beat for beat, it's very, very similar. Like, even some of the dialogue is lifted almost word for word out of the original, which is kind of what I wanted to fill that gap. So, and it wasn't, like I said, it was good back in the day, so there's no real need to change it. But yeah, I think if I had to recommend it would be put that high for the aim assist on, and if you can, because they're not going to patch this game. They're not
surprised at that, to be honest.
They're not gonna. I don't think they're gonna unlock it. I don't think Hangar 13 give a fuck anymore. Or more likely 2K. They're like, get on something else. Yeah. So if you can, I would recommend the PC version, because you'll probably get 60 out of a reasonably modest PC. And I think that'll just add another layer to it, which I didn't have. So if you've got that option, go there. I do like the structure being retained and not going down the Mafia 3 route. This open world template that we've now played dozens and dozens of times. It's not the smoothest game to play. Definitely has a few niggles, but is what I'd call an enjoyable Mafia romp, and doesn't disgrace the original. Doesn't foul the nest. Isn't a technical disaster like the GTA original trilogy. It does a good job of modernising this game, and now you've got a selection of free games that, if you want to go down that path, are all playable, and like I've said, mileage will vary on your enjoyment, but overall I'd give this, considering the drawbacks in the gameplay, I think it's fair to say a 7. 7 out of 10.
Respectable.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's about it. It could have maybe got to an 8 with better gameplay, but I think that's sort of the middle ground. It could have been a lot worse. It could have been just a disaster. It wasn't.
Has it brought back that Mafia itch? Are you going back through movies?
I did think about watching one the other day, to be honest. Did you? I think I might bung Goodfellas on, because that's one of my favourites.
What's that thing ain't out yet? You didn't watch The Sopranos, have you?
I've watched Sopranos, yeah.
What was that one I went and saw at the cinema? New York.
Old spin-off.
Saints of New York or something.
Yeah.
That must be coming onto telly soon.
Yeah, imagine that'll be there soon. But it did get me in a bit of a Mafia itch. I was thinking the other day, do I want to watch anything? And I thought, I've seen The Irishman. I think, is it The Irishman, the one with...
I've not seen that yet.
What's funny in the original is they have these faces that aren't particularly well detailed, but two of them are clear. One of them's clearly Joe Pesci in the original, and one of them's clearly Robert De Niro. It's even got a little mole in his face. It's like, how have you got away with that? They haven't done that in this one. They clearly thought, we're not going to lean into any of that, and they look quite a bit different. But I found that funny when I watched it back today. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot that looked like basically Joe Pesci.
Back then, like you say, they weren't thinking of a sequel or anything, just a new IP starting. Day dot. They've gone, fuck it, we'll get away with this.
I'd really like Rockstar, not the team that's doing the remakes or the definitive. Right, you compare their definitive edition compared to this, and it's night and day as well. Let's get that out of the way. I'd like them to do a take on like a Mafia, time period.
That'd be quite good.
Considering how much when they actually put effort into stuff and do things properly, they could make a really good game.
They also have Hangar 13 done. Have they done? No, just these two.
Yeah, I think that's they haven't really been sort of newly formed. Really, Mafia 3 was picked up. I think they took on a lot of people from the Mafia 2 developers, but they're not done a lot of games. We did get rumour they cancelled a game. They had a game cancelled, by Take-Two in November this year.
Was this that one that was...
It's like an online service game. And I reckon the production cost had already got to 53 million. And then Take-Two went, ain't going to work, is it? They pulled the plug on them. So they may well be out of the picture for a while. Right. But at least we've got Mafia.
Yeah. No, it's definitely something I've been sniffing. I was just looking just then. Was it £14 on that PC?
Yeah.
Fucking 1440p Dreamboat on there.
It looked nice,
the trilogy for £17.
I mean, you got to get that, really.
Yeah, well, I did start because free was one of the PlayStation Plus games, I think. So I did start that before the new consoles come out. But now given that the option, I think I probably will try and go.
Yeah, and there's connective tissue between all three.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's they have a not like a mate. It's not like a complete sequel or anything like that.
Three's a prequel, is it? Or is
it goes 1, 2, 3. That's the chronological order. So I think 3 is like set in the 60s or 70s.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I think 2 is set post-war, so 45-ish, and this is set 30s.
Right.
But there's some cool little connective bits they've got between the franchise, and like I said, they're not 10 out of 10s. They're not close to being 10 out of 10s, but there's very few games that tackle Mafia stuff out there. So
they all smart dressing back then.
They were.
Every
really dapper.
Got a fucking dapper suit on. You walk down the high street here, and he's got fucking slops in tracksuit.
Yeah, well, to be honest, I haven't been out of my jogging bottoms in about 2 years.
No, that is slop life now. If someone wants me to dress like the fucking 1930s, mate, on your bike,
your fucking bike. Get me the cars, but I'm not dressing like you lot.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, take one of them bad boys.
Right, I'm going to call it for this week.
Hopefully.
Shut it down. Close to an hour, well, basically on the hour mark, so I think that's...
Oh, good. You and Logan going over a couple of times.
It's him, innit? He just talks shit. I was going to ask him to give us a statement about Halo Infinite, but I feel like I'm going to leave it now. He's not happy with the progression. It's as simple as that. He's getting fed up with the challenges he's getting. Like, he's getting challenges that require specific weapons in game modes that only give you a random weapon each spawn. And then he's getting specific match type challenges, and the playlists are random, so you might be sitting there 2 hours and not get the game type. Then you've got to win the game, and it's like, oh god. There's certainly some issues there which we'll probably get into as and when the release date of the main game comes out, because I'm interested to get some of your thoughts post campaign, because I know you definitely smashed Halo Infinite for a week or so and then
I've just sort of dropped off. I haven't played anything. It's all gaming, but no, I do want to get back in, and I did. It was a weird little... I don't normally get involved in these multiplayer games, but the sort of hype was there, and I want to try and keep it continuing, to be honest, to get back into it. But
so we'll be back because I could talk about Halo every week if I wanted, but once we've got the campaign out, there'll be another layer and we have the whole package and go, right, what have we done here,
Phil?
We'll
be getting involved.
So look forward to that. But nothing more for us to say here other than thanks for your time and ta-da.
This was a Dimp Digital production.